Setting it up. All right, why am I not seeing it? Is it not happening? Meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Well, Facebook sure didn't tell me. All right.
Very good.
Welcome, Facebook land. You have the bookends of the Biehl family here. I'm here with my sister, composer Karen Biehl, and we're going to talk about all kinds of things. I share her music quite frequently, and give me just a second here to see where this is happening on Facebook, because I'm not seeing it. I want to see it. I'm told it's live. We're going to assume it's live. Anyway, so welcome everyone. Like I said, I share my sister's music quite frequently and people have a really good reaction to it. So I wanted to start by talking about musical background.
Yeah.
We grew up in a very musical household. What was your experience of that?
My experience was that our father was always playing the piano, like all the time. And so there was always music around. You sang and you played guitar, and Kim, our other sister, played the harp, and then Kurt played violin. So there was always some sort of music in the house.
Always. And it was classical for the most part.
It was classical and it was very encouraged. I mean, very actively encouraged.
Each of us took lessons of some sort and often cycled through. So you studied piano for a long time.
I did. I studied piano. I also took violin lessons for a while, believe it or not. I was in orchestra from 4th grade through, actually I played a little bit in college even, but I did it all through high school, even though it was a nerdy thing to do.
It was a very nerdy thing to do.
Yeah, I know. But I'm really glad I did, because I have to say, I think I learned more from playing in an orchestra and hearing all the parts than I did anything else about composing. You know,
interesting, more so than choir. We forget to mention we were both in a really good choir in high school.
Yeah, and then I studied opera, and that was really what I was pursuing. But I think that I learned more from the interaction of instruments, because I don't write choral music. I tend to write things for piano, and I like to do the strings too, because it's just sort of second nature to me. And also my voice at one point had a similar range to a violin. So I really relate to the violin, you know?
You studied music in college and also in graduate school, right?
Yes, I have an undergraduate degree from SMU, and I got like you have, and I got my master's from San Francisco Conservatory of Music.
And you started out actually in the opera world, sort of.
Did, yes. I came to New York. I sang little small companies around here, and ultimately in time, I realized it really wasn't for me. I don't know how it is now, but it was very cutthroat then. And it just didn't work for me.
So my memory is that fairly soon after you came to New York, after you left San Francisco, which was in the early 90s, or actually maybe even 1990 or 91, how did you start composing, and why did you start composing?
Well, it's kind of funny. I think I stopped singing in around 98, and I took some time and I didn't even think about music. And I went to Australia in 1999. Well, let me go back first. When I was studying opera, I always made up my own cadenzas, and I always was singing little melodies to myself. Throughout my whole life, I made up little melodies that I would sing to myself, and I didn't realize that I was composing, but I really was. I'm sure you probably heard some of them. Anyway.
We used to converse by singing fake opera at each other.
Yes, that's true. But I had this experience in Australia. I don't want to really get into it in great detail, but I had a disappointment, and all of a sudden, for several days, it was like the earth and the sky, the stars and the moon and the sun were just pouring energy into my body, and it was really intense. I had like this waves of energy coming through me. I didn't know what it was about. When I got back to New York, all of a sudden I was just composing. I went out and bought one of those little, what do you call them? One of those little piano, not Casio, but a Yamaha that had all the sounds. And I was writing little opera, I started to write an operetta, and I was writing all kinds of music with these cheesy little sounds, but I knew I could hear what it was I wanted, and it just was coming through me. It just poured through me. So that's pretty much how I started.
And wasn't there like a song cycle based on that was sort of inspired by William Blake at one point?
Yes, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. It was basically about my search for my true love. And yeah. The cat, there were archetype characters, the soprano, the maestro, and the cat, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And at some point you started doing guided visualizations?
Yes, that was in 2016. I set my music to guided visualizations. The first one was actually inspired by my fiance, Joey, the maestro, who you know. And he wanted me to do something for his students. So he sort of gave me the idea in like somewhat the text, although I modified it, about how to get his students to focus in the classroom and to actually take their education seriously. So I had a music written for it already that I just set to a guided visualization. And then I did one for true love. I did one for health, and I did one for finding your true self. So I did those, and that was my focus for a couple years. And then in 2008, I did my first album that was it was music without any meditation. And it was Starlight Dreams, piano.
2018?
Yes, it came out in November of 2018.
Mm-hmm. Just going back briefly to the classroom again, there are other ways that your music has ended up in the classroom, right? Didn't you actually notate out some of your pieces so students could learn them? What was that?
Some of them were performed by his students, my fiance's students. And another thing he did was he played my music to get people to relax and to calm down in the classroom. And he had them answer a series of questions. He'd play a song and then ask them questions just to get them in touch with their feelings. Like, what does this remind you of? How does it make you feel? Things like that. And he had been doing stuff like this for a long time, but now he was using my music to do it. So, and the questions, I read them, the answers to the questions, and he was surprised by some of the stuff that people were saying about what they wanted to do with their lives, and that were inspired by listening to the music, because he had no idea these people had any goals and aspirations, because they sort of acted mm-hmm. out in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And wasn't there something too about actually publishing sheet music of some of your pieces as etudes the students could play? And
yes.
Yeah, and you had a scholarship competition at one point as well.
I did, yes. And they played my music, and I gave them prizes they did videos. Mm-hmm. So that was nice.
Towards their education.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how's your style and your interest in what you're doing? How's that been evolving? Or so you guided visualizations, and you're doing some things that kind of like you moved into solo piano work.
Well, to be honest with you, I did that because it's kind of the easiest thing to record, because it's not as complicated in terms of, because the stuff I used to do early on was pretty heavily orchestrated. I just didn't have the instruments. And I'm slowly bringing more and more instruments in recently. I'm sure you've noticed I'm putting in the violin, and now I got a viola, and it's not just piano. I really like to have multiple parts. It's more fun. But in terms of evolving, I think that really I tend to write based on necessity. So whatever I'm experiencing is what inspires me. So for example, early on, I was looking for my true love. So that's what I wrote about.
Mhm.
And then I was stressed out at my job. So I was trying to write relaxing music to get my mind off the job.
Mhm.
And, and the guided visualizations were also for me. The health one that I did was something that I had used myself to help myself heal and avoid surgery. So it's always been about dealing with life and responding to it. So more recently, it's been the pandemic. So I wrote some pieces about that, as well. So basically whatever's going on is what I tend to write about.
That's what you write about. And just to explain for people, you play a keyboard. Well, there are a couple of things that happen. You have a keyboard that we have hello from Tasmania. So Australia has checked in. Anyway, you have a keyboard that has a whole lot of a vast library of sampled instruments, right? And so some of
but I'm using a lot of real ones as well recently. The violin and the viola, and but the library samples are pretty good these days. So.
Mm-hmm. So that's why your other pieces could have this really big or orchestrated sound to it, because you have this vast library of sampled sounds.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated, to be honest with you. It's almost like an entire instrument on its own, because you have to know how to tweak them, each sample. But it can be done, and the choirs are pretty good. You have to work with the EQ, but I like to have choirs also as I like the little boys choir.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Mercury. So
all those years we had the Vienna Boys Choir playing in the house.
I know.
Maybe that had something to do with it. How does music get released these days? You used to make CDs. What's the situation now? How does it get distributed?
Yeah, kind of funny, because CD Baby, who I was getting my music distributed through before, no longer even produces CDs. They don't sell them anymore on their store. They shut their store down for CDs. So mostly you submit through a distributor or a label, which I haven't done. I'm kind of an independent person. So I've used CD Baby, and I'm using DistroKid, because they charge a yearly fee. So it seems to be more economical, and they're also quicker to respond. And what happens is they send it everywhere. They send it to iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, pretty much every streaming service that exists. So, and it's really easy and quick, and you can do the cover art yourself. And I think you have a lot of power over your music using these distributors.
And you design your own cover art for each of your albums and singles.
Yeah.
Complete product control here.
Yes.
Describe your style now of the music that you're composing. The label for it is Neoclassical. It used to be called New Age, but this isn't really New Age. It would actually be a limiting thing to call it. So what is it?
Neoclassical. It's kind of hard to define neoclassical, because I'm sure everybody has a different idea of what it is, and I don't think it's really necessarily a technical term. It's just something people use to describe music. I think today it's neoclassical music as opposed to modern classical. Modern classical sometimes, not always, is a little bit jarring and dissonant, atonal. But neoclassical music is harmonic. It's pleasing to the ear. Sometimes it's very calming and relaxing. Other times it's like a lot of the movie music that you hear these days, I would consider neoclassical. Video games, things like that. There's all different styles too. There's also this minimal piano trend right now, where you don't really go all over the place harmonically, and it's pretty mellow. It's kind of like settee. And a lot of people use felted keyboards that have the hammers felted, so it's got this dampened sound, and there's a lot of composers in that genre. So I kind of go all over the place and do a lot of styles within that genre. because I want to get on as many different types of playlists as possible.
So explain about playlists.
Oh yeah. Well, Spotify in particular has a lot of playlists, and the more playlists you're on, the more listeners you have, the more followers you have, it starts over time to generate income. But it's also nice to know people are listening to your music.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these playlists, and a lot of them are by genre and style, but some of them are like music for dogs and cats to relax, or music for concentration, or all sorts of things. People seem to want to focus. Like when I was young, I didn't want music on when I was studying, but a lot of younger people like to listen to music when they're studying, and that's a really popular playlist.
Interesting. And
yeah.
different artists curate playlists. Isn't there some kind of synergy going on in the neoclassical world that's actually collaborative?
There's actually a Facebook page where people release, it's called Release Radar or Spotify Release Radar, which is actually what Spotify calls it. But this is where all the composers go in and post their pieces. So they will get on other people's playlists, and they'll put people's music on their playlist. And it's a very, like you said, collaborative group.
So your experience of the neoclassical composers has, to a large extent, it's been pretty mutually supportive, right? People are putting each other's music.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's
And,
really.
No, I'm sorry.
I said it's really nice. I really like it. It's refreshing.
Because it's not the way certain professional parts of the music world historically have been.
No.
That's been my experience too.
Yeah.
So there are also different publications and podcasts and reviewers.
Yeah, and radio stations. My music has been on the radio, new age radio stations. I had a promoter submit my music, and it was on the new age music chart. It's called the Zone Music Reporter. They collect data from all the radio stations' charts that play new age music. So it's just new age, which includes the neoclassical. So my album Starlight Dreams got on that, like number 13 at one month last year. And there's also New Age Music Guide has a chart, and my pieces have been on that as well. And it's just different places play the music. And I was on airlines as well. When you're relaxing on the airline, you put the headphones on. And the most recent one is Music Choice on TV.
Oh.
That radio? It's called Sound Exchange. And not Sound Exchange. What's it called? I can't remember the name of it. There's one channel that has relaxing music. So
and your music's on it.
Yeah, one piece.
But still, that's pretty cool.
That's nice.
It's pretty cool.
Doesn't pay a lot, but it's nice to know people are listening. It's funny because Joey always said my music was going to be on there one day, and I was like, no way, and then it happened.
There it is. So funny. And so it seemed to me, my observation is that things started mushrooming last year. Was that your experience in terms of the reviews you were getting and the acclaim and the reach and how international?
Yeah. Definitely last year. Kind of early last year it started, and then it's been growing.
And just to tie this into astrology, so I have some kind of reason for having this on my page, besides the fact that my readers like your music. There has been some really evolutionary activity going on in the part of your chart that deals with creative self-expression, and your chart, and it brings a depth and a profundity and some real strong changes. And there's also the planet that rules Father in it. And my observation was that your music really started to move into a very different tone after our father died last October.
Yes.
You wrote a piece really soon after his death. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was like a week afterwards. I was really pretty upset, and I had such strong, intense feelings, and this piece just came through me. It was called To My Father. And the interesting thing is, as I was writing it, I swear I could hear him humming in my right ear. And then when I recorded it, same thing. He was humming in my right ear. I'm like, whoa. So yeah, it was quite an experience. And it ended up being played, as you know, at his memorial service.
Yep, it was.
Yeah.
And then I've just seen things really growing. There's a purposefulness in what you're doing. Let's talk about before we get into that, the impact of the pandemic and the shutdown on your creative process. First off, on your schedule. Now, you're based in New York City, and historically you have had a fairly long and definitely a grueling and annoying subway commute. So you've been working at home, right?
Yes, I have. Love it.
So, and as a result, what are your evenings like now?
It's not just my evenings, it's my mornings. I'm not exhausted. I have more time. Doesn't matter if I'm got shoes on and makeup and all that stuff that you normally do. I don't have to take the subway an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. So I have more time, and I didn't realize how draining the subway was. I mean, my job is what I thought was making me so tired, and I'm sure it was too, but the subway on top of it. Plus there's no light in my office, and now I'm working right by a window. It's great. And I have more time. As soon as I'm done working, I'll walk on the roof to get my exercise, and I come in and I start composing. I start, writing or recording. And I have much more time, and I don't have to work till 1 a.m. like I do sometimes when I'm working in the office, because it's in me. I have to compose. So I'm going to do it even if I'm working. I'm going to make the time, and that usually cuts into my sleep.
Now you get your sleep.
Well, yeah.
Somewhat. But okay, so I've also noticed a couple of things, a diversification of the type of music that you're composing, and an amplification. The planet that expands everything it touches is in your house of creative self-expression. That's Jupiter. So it seems to me there's a lot more. There's a depth to it, and also you're like, there's a schedule to it all now too, right? You have definite goals and different lines of music now, and I've seen this. I get these things at night. Actually, there's a sibling text that happens frequently, and we'll get a draft of whatever is being worked on, or we'll get, most recently it was like, here's what's rolling out through the end of the year, and there's all this stuff on it.
Yeah.
So that's changed, right?
Well, I had a schedule before, but it was slower. My goal this year was to release one piece a month, and working in the office, it's complicated to do that because I have time restrictions, but I'm doing that and more now. I have probably 6 pieces I'm releasing for Halloween.
Now, why is Halloween such a target time for you?
Well, last year on Halloween, I had more listens than I've ever had. You can see live how many people are listening on Spotify, and I consistently had between 50 and 70 people listening on Spotify throughout the entire day. And there's a chart you can look at of all your streams on Spotify for artists. And there's one day, October 31st of last year, where it's way up here, and the other days are like here. So it's a really high listening day for the Halloween.
So last year you had one. This year you have a whole bunch of things you're going to release for Halloween.
Yes, and it's actually probably for me the fun stuff to write. I don't know why. I love writing the Halloween stuff. It's
a little bit of an evil funhouse feel to it.
Yeah, but there's also a mischief in it. It's really fun to write. It's not very hard either. It's not real complex, generally.
So you have stuff targeted for Halloween. You have some things targeted for Christmas?
Well, actually, I have a piece called Falling Leaves that's releasing in September.
Okay.
And what else do I have? I have something releasing on Friday, but it's a cover of The Godfather. I have
So you've experimented a little bit with some cover work this
Yes,
summer, which
yes,
is something you didn't do before. And the first one was A Time for Us from Romeo and Juliet, the film.
yes. And this one is the Godfather love theme. And part of the reason why I did it was purely my goal-oriented side. I see where people get on playlists and there's a high demand for covers. I don't know why, but people like them. You know, they're popular. People know them already. You don't have to, you know, they're more likely to listen to something than that a famous person wrote than I wrote. But
It's Capricorn in the fifth house, everyone.
what? What?
That's Capricorn in the fifth house. I'll be goal-oriented about my creative self-expression.
No, yeah, I have gotten a little bit goal oriented. It's kind of funny. I target the I don't know if target's the right word, but I'm ahead of the game now. Last year I scrambled to get a piece together for Halloween, and I really scrambled to get a piece together for Christmas, and I got one, a Christmas cover. But this year I'm ahead of the game. So I already have stuff lined up through the end of September and into October. And I have a piece releasing in November that's a compilation album that I'm doing with Yellow Rose Records. I was asked to be a part of it. It's a felted piano collection. So I wrote a piece for that. I wrote that in about a week because, you know, the guy that masters my music asked me if I wanted to do it. I was like, okay, if I have time. And then I realized I did. So I just did it. And then what else? I already have a not just a Christmas, a winter piece that is coming through me. It's solo piano. Might be called Falling Snow. I don't know. Might as well go with the falling theme. And I'm starting to think about a Christmas cover. So I'm about a couple of months ahead. Like I was already in May, I was writing Halloween music already. You know, I'm like the store. My friend Kathleen, she's like, "What is this?" It's like the retail stores are like 6 months ahead. You know.
And even with all of these, do you see any kind of common theme? But one thing that I hear from people is that your music speaks to their soul. So,
I think that there's a quality to it that it's not something I necessarily can describe. That one person that's really well established as a composer that has like a huge following on Spotify, like 200,000 monthly listeners, told me that she knows my music without even seeing who wrote it, because it's got a sound to it. I think there's an element, I don't know, I can't think of the right word, but mischief in some of it. Not all of it, but I don't know, sort of, I wrote a piece I thought was sad, and I submitted it to playlists, and people said it's too spooky for my playlist. And it didn't even seem spooky to me, but people consider some of my music spooky that's not even meant to be spooky. You know?
And that leads me to your reaction to what has happened on social media to your first name, the Karen phenomenon. What are you doing with that? Because you have something up your sleeve with that.
Well, yeah, at first I was just like really annoyed that people were using the name Karen to describe, you know, a pejorative word for a certain type of woman. It's like, why Karen? I mean, why do you have to use a person's name to describe somebody? Because it's sort of difficult for anybody with that name. And not just Karen, but there's other words like that. But so I don't know why, but things just come to me sometimes. And I decided to take advantage of it. So I've got a whole thing I'm starting now. One of the pieces is called, it's releasing it's already in the queue to release in October, or maybe the end of September. And a whole thing on the House of Karen, different rooms. And so I've got the House of Karen, the attic, getting ready to release. I'm also right now working on a piece called Karen's Lament. And you've heard it.
Oh, yeah.
You've heard them all.
It's kind of spooky.
Kind of spooky, but it's also a little bit like, you know, the Karen in my thing is somebody, in my mind, the Karen is a victim of the people that call people Karen. not that people don't misbehave, and I'm not saying that there's something wrong, that that people should act a certain way, but I'm just saying that sometimes the word Karen is misused. I've been called a Karen, and not just because
Oh, no, that's too meta.
Yeah, right.
I will say that the few tidbits of the House of Karen that I've heard would be appropriate for, say, a Tim Burton film.
Yeah,
There's that level, a little bit of whimsy in it, but a little bit of edge.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be a little bit light spirited. Most of my music, even The Castle, wasn't intended. The one I wrote for last year for Halloween, it really was supposed to be kind of light, but it's kind of spooky though. I think I like eerie.
Eerie, that's a good one.
Yeah.
There's a question, where is Mercury in your chart? I don't remember whether it's in Virgo or in Leo.
It is in Virgo.
It's in Virgo, Mercury in Virgo. Hey, a Virgo asked, so.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. I've got Venus.
Oh, no, someone with Virgo asked. She's not a Virgo. What am I saying? She's Pisces. But without revealing too much, Karen does have Venus in Leo at the very end of Leo. So very, very dramatic and showy and playful. And in Australia, we had Jan years ago, insurance claims, but we treat it humorously. I think the Karen thing has kind of stopped being.
Yeah.
So you have a lot coming up through the end of the year. No, you have a lot coming up through the end of the year. It's already rolling out. You have a release coming this weekend?
Friday.
The Godfather theme, right?
Yeah.
So where can people find your music? All over the place.
Yes. It's on Pandora. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube, iTunes, Bandcamp.
Using your name or under what name? Karen
Biehl. Yeah. And I have a website, Maestra Musica, MaestraMusica.com. I wanted Maestra Music, but it was taken, so I took the Italian version. Pretty much any streaming service will have it that I'm aware of.
And you can make your own playlist on Pandora or just go to the artist page on Spotify and
make your own playlist
and have things sent to you. And
Mm-hmm.
So this is your way, just to kind of sum up. I mean, it's an impulse in you that you must express, essentially.
Yes. It's kind of funny, when the pandemic hit and when it was in Italy, I had a really strong reaction to seeing all the footage of people struggling with masks and dying, and the trucks with ice in them in the street. And I felt it coming into New York City, and I didn't know if I was going to live, to be honest with you. So I composed a song called The Aftermath, and I was thinking, I want something left behind if I don't make it through this, because we didn't know at that point what the pandemic was going to be like. We didn't know. It was very scary. So I wanted to keep composing music so I would live on. And right now I still think that way. I want, even if I suddenly, I don't want, say it's going to happen, but I want to always be composing music. So even when eventually I do go, I'll still be active, I'm sorry to be so morbid, but I had a really strong reaction to the pandemic. It made me really go that after the fact that what happened with our father, it really took me into a very reflective, introspective, very dark, not dark, but deep place.
Mm-hmm. Re-examining what's really important and streamlining and simplifying and
more so, just what was coming through me was more had more depth,
which is what I've been saying. I've certainly observed with the Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, Pluto pile up in your house of creative self-expression. Things have gotten profound.
When did that happen?
Saturn and Pluto have been there for some time. and they fused at the beginning of this year. And Jupiter joined in a bit last year, and all of this was highly active on the day Dad died. Okay, so it was highly active on that day, when the astrology of his departure is pretty mind-blowing. So now it's fused into, here's the new way we're going to do things, and deepening and amplifying that is the theme of the year. And all this has been happening in your house of creative self-expression.
I feel also a part of me, everything I write in some way is in his honor, even if it's something he wouldn't have listened to.
Mm-hmm.
I know he liked me getting my music out in the world, and he would be happy, because that was important to him. Music was very important to him, as you know.
And so was the number 76, and you use that in posting, and what you it's a guide for you in doing various things.
Yeah, I know. I've had times when I haven't been sure whether to send something to a playlist, and I'll submit something to a playlist for consideration, and I see the number 76 somewhere, and it tells me to do it, and I've gotten on the playlist. Like, these are like playlists that were really hard to get on. So it's kind of a number for me. But guess what? To my father, yesterday hit 76,000 listens on Spotify.
That's a lot. That's amazing that it's that number too. Wow.
Well, yeah, the timing.
That number. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, just in summing up here, do you have any philosophy of your music that you care to share? Anything else you want to say about it?
I don't know that I have a philosophy about my music, but I do want to say that there's a lot of times in life when people tell you you can't do something. And I had a lot of that throughout much of my life. But when something's really important to you, it's like nothing can stop you, and don't let anything stop you. Basically, that's my message. If people say you can't do it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean like breaking the law. I mean, if people say you can't do it in terms of you're not capable, do it. Show them, you know? Our father.
The comment is the Dad must be beaming. I'd say smirking. He's probably smirking.
Who's that comment from?
Someone I know in Australia, in Tasmania.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you know, it's funny, as whoever I was just thinking of him, because that was very much the way he was. He had a piano teacher that broke him when he was young, and really he had been like really just precocious and just playing. And this teacher said, "Stop! Don't be so full of yourself." And he made him really work hard. And our father had a very goal-oriented, I'll prove what I can do it part to him with his music.
It's very true.
Yeah. So he's coming through me more and more.
Uh-huh.
Like
now that he can't give his annual recitals, he gave recitals at his house for 11 years or something towards the end of his life.
But not just that, also his attachment to data, like the stock market. He was always watching the weather and the stock market. I'm always looking at my Spotify stats. You know, I'm just like him.
No, some, but no.
No, there's a part of me.
Yeah, I agree. No, clearly it's there. It's there. Oh, and someone else has and my friend in Australia has a connection of 76 to her father as well.
Really?
I'll have to explore that one.
That's the spirit.
Boo. Oh. There we go. Now the Marx Brothers come in too. So.
Wow.
Well, so actually the final thing I have is what do you have a goal or a desire in the impact that or effect your music has on your listeners?
Well, I think I pretty much want people to enjoy it, but also to feel something and to have an experience. Like, I think a lot of my music is kind of evocative. So I like it when people have a sensation like they could see it in a movie, or it makes them feel a certain way, or, my goal, a lot of people's goal is to write relaxing music. And I got so tired of the playlists that were soft, relaxing music. So I was like, come on, feel, have some passion, so I like people to feel. I don't want people to numb out. And that's part of the problem I have with the term new age, because a lot of new age music is very escapist and zoning out and but for me, it's about waking up. Does that make sense?
That's the money line right there. So thanks. This was fun.
It was. Thank you.
It's good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you.
For anyone who hears her current pieces, that's your violin and your viola above your head on the piano, right?
Yes.
You actually play.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.